core vital behaviors trainer. Some people call him the first 30 guy. Others call him the Coach Basics guy. I just call him a dear friend. He's the Senior Director of Training and Field Development. Please welcome to the stage, Carver!
Sets a real high bar. I'm back there like, screw it, let's just screw it. Come on, bring it down, bring that up. Just kidding. I really wasn't cheering for her to screw up. No, I'm excited to be here with you guys. First of all, you guys, I don't know if you felt it, I don't know. This morning to me was an amazing session, and it feels like we're continuing on to this afternoon. And those of you that saw the post that we had right before the NLC started, we talked about how all these light bulb moments are going to be happening for you, right? And we talked about how those are going to give some good intentions. And that we can't confuse good intentions with decisions, because good intentions aren't decisions, right? And decisions are necessary because you're going to come out of this with an opportunity to start some new things. And it's the start that stops most people. And so that's where we're getting to right now. And I just want to make sure you're cognizant of that. I want to talk to you today a little bit about starts. I'm going to start with this, 0.2 of a second. Now, you probably had you could never have guessed I was going to start that way, right? 0.2 of a second. That's pretty quick, right? So if a second's like from 1 to 2, that's like 0.2 of that. But yet, during the last 4 Olympic Games, last 10 Olympic Games, excuse me, last 40 years, 8 men and 8 women lined up at the starting line at the beginning of the 100-meter dash. Each one of them wanted to be crowned the fastest man or woman on the planet. And the gun went off, and then usually about 10 seconds later, the average difference between first place and last place was 0.2 of a second. Now, if you ask people in the sprinting world what the difference is, right? What was the difference? Well, it's obviously, they're genetically different than me. We can just get that out of the way. But let's assume they're all very talented people, okay? If you ask people in the sprinting world what the difference was, they will tell you that it's their ability to execute on the fundamentals of sprinting. That for those 10 seconds, they're executing on the fundamentals at such a degree that they're getting the very most out of their potential. In fact, Glenn Mills is one of the top sprinting coaches in the world. He actually is Usain Bolt's coach. And he said this, "I believe in speed. Everything I do in terms of developing athletes is to achieve that. So I am fanatical about technique. I believe that the slightest adjustments to your technique can improve you without doing any additional work. Top sprinters know the fundamentals of sprinting. And they're real simple. Stride length, how far I go, plus frequency, how many times I do that, equals speed. And so they train relentlessly on those fundamentals to expand their stride length, to expand their frequency, relentlessly training on those things. They're not trying to create new fundamentals, to discover new fundamentals, to figure out if there's a shortcut to those fundamentals. They focus their time on those fundamentals. They also understand that there's some common obstacles they'll all face. The first one is inertia. Inertia is that obstacle they face as they get in the starting blocks, and they have to go from being in a state of complete rest, of not moving, into getting out of the starting blocks and getting running. They also understand they've got to deal with gravity. While inertia faces them initially just to get going, gravity pulls at them every step of the way down the track. Now, what the heck does this have to do with you guys? Okay? Now you know more about sprinting than you ever cared to. Well, I want you to think about your new coaches. In fact, I really want you to think about your coaches, new coaches, since we're at Leadership Conference now, and that's what we need to be thinking. And I want you to think about them in terms of the start. Because we all face starts. You guys are going to face new starts, but right now we're going to think about their start, what they're doing to get started. In our business, tried and true principles, fundamentals of successful coaching. We call them the 4 vital behaviors. And one of the things I hope you've noticed since you've been here is it almost feels like there's repetition in almost every single presentation. In fact, that's a key takeaway for you as leaders, because I know sometimes you're at the stage of the business when you kind of get enamored a little bit with maybe what the secrets are. And you thought, maybe I'm going to come to NLC, and they're going to lock us in a room, and they're like, okay, look, here's the secret. Don't tell anyone until they get here, but this is what you do, okay? And now you got here, you're sitting down, and we're saying, be consistent, 4 vital behaviors. And you're like, I already knew all that stuff. What are you talking about, okay? They're the fundamentals for a reason. And there is power in understanding simple, proven principles profoundly. I cannot believe I just did all those peoples. Okay? There's a lot of practice on that. So for a new coach, not overcomplicating the fundamentals. We also have to understand for our new coaches that there's some common obstacles they'll all face that we can plan for. The first one, using our sprinting analogy, is inertia. Right? Just like a sprinter into that starting block and has to get going. Your new coaches come to you and they have to get going quickly. It's the pain of getting started, of creating new habits, of overcoming their initial doubts and their fears. Did I make a bad decision? And can this really work for me? That inertia of getting them started is an obstacle. Okay? They also have to deal with gravity. And gravity is unaligned thinking. One of the biggest things that you'll have to look at and pay attention to with not only your new coaches, but are your coaches helping their new coaches, is adjusting their mindset from thinking like employees to thinking like business owners. From being reactive to being proactive. From being something that kind of seeks for permission or waits to look for blame to being someone that actually takes initiative and is accountable for their business. It's a different kind of thinking that takes place. And it doesn't happen overnight. And so things like, does my training, does that empower them to make decisions for themselves? Am I teaching them? Yeah, I could do it for them. But is that really teaching them that the power of their choices is really what impacts their business? Or am I creating an environment where I'm celebrating their followership of me instead of the leadership of themselves? Okay? Now, I know this can be really hard, you guys. It's easy to stand up here and say it. I know it can be really, really hard. Especially when you consider the fact that they come to you through a lot of different doors. Right? Some come looking to lose weight, looking to get fit, some looking for improving health, some are looking for the financial benefits of it. And so they come through these doors, and sometimes some of the temptations are, again, especially if you're thinking you're enamored with finding the secret of it. The temptation is to think, well, this is a difficult problem, so it must have a very complicated solution. That's not true. In fact, I hope you're picking up on that from all of the leaders that you've seen come across the stage. Really, regardless of what door they walk through, they've got to develop a belief system of Beachbody products. Do they believe in what they're representing? And how do they get that? Through their own experiences. They have to learn the vital behaviors. And those are learned through experience. You can understand them, but until you actually begin doing them, you don't really learn them. The third one is then learning how to run effective challenge groups, because that is the core of the business. That is the core of what we do. So regardless of what door they come through, one of the things that you can do that makes it simple is they all have to get on the same path. And we call this path the vital process. Now the vital process does two things. The reason why we introduced this is the first thing that it does. It's not just fun marketing spin, you guys. There's a reason behind this. The first thing that it does is it really helps outline the steps that everyone goes through, whether they come to you through your challenge groups or they come directly to coach. It's the process people go through to develop a belief system that makes them effective at coaching. Okay? So their belief system can match their passion, can match their enthusiasm, match their integrity, and all of that aligns up to helping them put themselves in the best position of success. The second thing that it does, and I hope that you'll pay attention to this, one of the biggest headwinds that you'll face right now, at this stage of your business, is duplication. It's also the thing that drives most coaches at this stage, I guess, crazy, because you can't control other people, right? And one of the areas that I see that people make the error in doing is they get enamored trying to duplicate people. Okay? That's called cloning. We don't duplicate people. Okay? What we duplicate are systems, programs, approaches that we can teach. And when you look at the vital process, these 4 areas give you a very high-level roadmap of what the key systems, and I know it's a big word, but it basically just means the approach that we teach, the systems that we need to have in place so that we can have people duplicate on those systems, how we acquire customers, how we run those challenge groups, right? And then the third one is onboarding, transitioning to coach. The process of getting someone onboarded and started. This is a heart and lungs system for your business. That's why it's part of the vital process. One of the things that we noticed a little bit last year was that there are some coaches in the network that are really, really good at coach onboarding, and you can see it from their numbers. You can see it from the leadership they develop. But we also noticed that as the network had grown so quick, we had lost some of our best practices around onboarding, which is the reason why last year we introduced the first 30. Now, the first 30, honestly, you guys, it's just an onboarding framework. It's an onboarding framework that incorporates the best practices of some of our most successful coaches in the network. It's very simple. It's meant to be simple. You can use it just as is, or you can do what a lot of coaches do and kind of add their own flavor to it. But regardless, it spells out for a new coach their first 30 minutes, their first 30 hours, and their first 30 days. What are those key things we want them to do? Okay? The first 30 minutes, they get an email right after they enroll. Instruct them to watch the new coach orientation video. Why is that important? Because a new coach needs to be engaged in something right away. You want to fill that vacuum in their head of, oh my gosh, I just did this, is it going to work? I don't know if it's going to work. I mean, they're already thinking 5 years down the road and they haven't even started yet. You want to fill that vacuum with something that they can do. It's like a sprinter. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, going back to this analogy, when they get into a race, they all kind of get up the line and they kind of look at each other. And they're like, they don't want to get into their stance until the very last second. And the reason is if they get down there and they get in their stance, the longer they have to hold that stance, the more their muscles tighten up. I can't believe I'm standing like this in front of all of you, but I hope this analogy makes sense. Okay? The longer they sit there, the more their muscles tense up, and the slower they are getting going once the gun finally goes off. We don't want to leave our new coaches stranded in the starting blocks. Oh, I'll get to them in a couple days. Meanwhile, they're in the starting blocks going, okay? That's why the first 30 hours is so important. During that first 30 hours, that video helps them walk through the Business Quick Start Guide. The Business Quick Start Guide helps them do things with their business at that stage of the business they're able to do, setting up their website, getting familiar with things, and they help them push them towards you for a GSR call. Within those first 30 hours, we want you to have set up some kind of a call with them, whether it's a large team call like Michael was talking about, or an individual call, whatever you do. But they know that you're there. The first 30 days now is really the most critical. This is when they're answering a lot of questions for themselves around their belief and their ability to do this. All right? One thing we've added to this checklist just this month was the Shakeology, Sharing Shakeology sheet. Because we want every new coach within their first 30 days to be equipped with the ability to build value effectively in Shakeology and be able to know how to share their Shakeology story in a compelling and compliant way. Arnaud talked a little bit about this, so I won't go into it. But if you haven't looked at this sheet, this is something that you need to make sure that you're not only familiar with, but that you're using with your new coaches. The culminating, I guess the biggest part of the first 30 days is the Coach Basics program, or whatever you choose to call it, your Coach University, whatever. But really the idea around this, it should teach some core skills. Again, guys, it's not about, don't overcomplicate it. The core skills of telling your story. What does that mean, social media-wise and other pieces like that? The core skills around being able to build value in Shakeology, in the challenge pack. And the core skill around inviting, that inviting process. Really narrowing that down and following a really simple methodology. That they learn something, that first blue arrow right there. And then they're asked to then apply it. And that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. And typically when they apply it, there's going to be some type of response, positive, negative, other things that come along. But regardless, in a lot of cases, they're going to have to learn how to overcome something, answer a question, whatever it happens to be. And when they do that, then the success follows. And really, you want them to go through this little 4-stage cycle as much as possible through your Coach Basics program. Because this cycle is how they gain experience. And as we all know, experience is really the best teacher when it comes to learning how to coach. All right, and I'm trying to keep it really simple for you guys on this standpoint because honestly, I think we tend to skew more towards the complicated side. And we don't need to go there, especially for new coaches. Now, when I've talked with new coaches about Coach Basics, there's a couple best practices that chances are a lot of you are already doing. But I want to just highlight them just in case. The first one is to be consistent. Be consistent. You just saw Melanie talk about, I think Melanie's consistent. I think we can all agree that she's very consistent, okay? But you see the power behind that consistency with those trainings, so coaches know they can count on it. It creates a rhythm and a cadence to your business. Use video, okay? Years ago, we used to be able to do the whole, hey, put a big post right in there and they would all read it. Kind of have to get away from that, guys. Use those posts as reference material, but use video, personalize it, talk to your team, do weekly Zoom calls with them, make sure they get to hear your voice, see your face, require activity to earn your time. And the reason why I put that one in there is, as you work with these new coaches, again, it's a key thing to help teach them, to illustrate the importance of that mentor-mentee relationship, where I'm going to support you in building your business, but you can't depend on me to build it for you. Okay? That's one way to do that. To do lots of recognition, to celebrate those cycles as they go through that little 4-step circle I showed you. Use recognition to celebrate that. And then for some of you that maybe don't run your Coach Basics groups yet, or want to kind of a refresher, check out the Leader Guide. There's a lot of best practices in there from top coaches around the network around Coach Basics. Now, at the beginning, I made the comment to you that it's the start that stops most people. I don't know if Jeff Hill quoted this. He's the first guy I heard it from, so I always attribute it to Jeff. Okay? But when he said this to me, this has been a phrase that I have used over and over again personally. Because like a lot of people, it is the start that tends to stop me. It's overthinking what needs to happen, what could happen, the unknown, and paralyzing myself in the starting blocks. For your new coaches, it's that start that stops most of them. And so it's really, really, really important as you look to drive, especially duplication, that you pay attention to new coach onboarding, to what you're doing, that you use the first 30 framework, that you use the best practices found in Coach Basics to be able to help your coaches get out of the starting blocks. Now to wrap up, let me share my word with you, if that's okay. My word's potential. The reason why I chose the word potential, as I thought about it, is because one of the things that I love to do, one of the things I love about what I do is I get to work with coaches, and I love to hear the stories about them discovering their own potential, but even more so seeing their joy when they help other people realize and discover their own potential. We tend to live in a world that focuses a lot on what's lacking, on the lack. And because of that, there's a tendency that we've got to start to define ourselves by the lack. And that's dangerous. That's a scary place to be. And I'll tell you, as a parent of 2 special needs children, I see this all the time. When I go out with my 2 kids, and I know when people see them, they don't see these beautiful, wonderful spirits, these kids that I love and adore. What they see is the lack. And it makes me want to just go up to them and say, I know what you see, but I got to tell you about what they can do. I want you to know what they're possible of. I want you to see the potential in them that I see in them. This wasn't always easy for me. When I first found out they had this disability, so we've heard this story, I went through a pretty dark time when I focused on the lack. But I learned that if no one else focused on their potential, if I didn't, no one else was going to. And so in our house, we focused on the potential, especially of these 2 kids, these 2 special kids that we've got. And it's changed the dynamic that we've got in our house. It's changed what we see. And one of the things, so we look for the little wins that we can celebrate and the things that bring them joy. And one of the things that brings my son Caleb joy is bowling. He loves to bowl. He has some potential in that area. He does it with Special Olympics now. And so once a month or so, we'll take him and we'll go bowling. And the other day, we took him bowling. And I shot this video. I want to show it real quick. And I want you to watch the potential and the joy here. There's my son. That curve, leaning back. And I was filming this And he hit that strike. Luckily, it was in slow-mo. And I just want you to watch his face. We focus on the potential. And we celebrate that. And after he did that, his brothers gave him a hug. His brother gave him a hug. We all celebrated the potential. I love what we do because we help people discover their potential. We choose to focus on the potential and not on the lack. And that's why I love Beachbody, guys. Thank you very much.